The eternal citadel stood like a mountain of crystal and steel on the planet Valara Prime. Ships from 200 different worlds filled the sky above it. Today was special. Today was the millennial choosing Jiho sat in a small holding cell 3 floors below the main ceremony hall. He had no idea why he was there. 3 days ago, his cargo ship had crashed on this planet. Engine failure, nothing fancy. He had walked to the nearest city to find help. Then guards had grabbed him, telling him he had trespassed on sacred ground. Now he was stuck in this cell with a broken communicator and no answers. He could hear the ceremony through the walls. Thousands of voices, music that sounded like wind chimes mixed with thunder, and someone speaking in a language his translator could barely handle. Jiho didn't care much. He just wanted to fix his ship and get back to work. Mining colonies needed supplies, and he had a delivery schedule to keep. In the grand hall above, Chancellor Vexith stood before the celestial gate. He was tall and covered in silver scales that caught the light. His species, the Draconites, had waited 1,000 years for this moment. The gate itself was massive, an arch made of material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, covered in symbols that glowed with their own light. "We gather today as our ancestors gathered before us," Vexith announced. His voice carried to every corner of the hall. "The celestial gate will choose our emperor, the one who will unite our broken galaxy." Lady Hieron stood among the human delegation, far from the center of attention. Humans were new to galactic politics, barely tolerated by the older species. She wore formal robes and kept her expression neutral. Inside, she felt nervous. This ceremony could change everything for humanity's position in the galaxy. Prince Dowan stepped forward first. He was made of living light, his form constantly shifting between different colors. The Luminars had ruled the core worlds for thousands of years. Everyone expected him to be chosen. He approached the gate with confidence. The gate hummed. Light washed over Prince Dowan, scanning him from head to toe. Everyone held their breath. Then the light faded. The gate fell silent. Prince Dowan had been rejected. Gasps filled the hall. Prince Dowan's light turned red with anger, but he stepped back. He had no choice. The gate's decision was absolute. One by one, other candidates approached. A princess with skin like moving water. A being made of crystal and metal. A creature that existed in 6 dimensions at once. Each time the gate scanned them. Each time it rejected them. The hall grew tense with worry and confusion. Jiho heard the ceremony growing louder and more chaotic above. He gave up on his communicator and leaned against the wall. Through a small window, he could see part of the ceremony hall. All those important-looking beings, all that fancy clothing and technology. It was a different world from the one he knew. In the hall, Chancellor Vexith was sweating despite his cold-blooded nature. This had never happened before. Some ceremonies had few candidates accepted, but never had so many been rejected. He looked at the ancient texts, searching for answers. "The prophecy speaks of unusual circumstances," said an old voice. Taman, a keeper of records, floated forward. His body was mechanical now, his original organic parts having failed centuries ago. "Perhaps we have misunderstood what the gate seeks." "Nonsense," Prince Dowan snapped. His light flared bright and angry. "The gate is malfunctioning. We should reset it and begin again." Commander Soman, captain of the Citadel Guard, stepped between Prince Dowan and the gate. She was a warrior, tall and strong, with scars from a dozen battles. "No one touches the gate," she said quietly. Her hand rested on her weapon. The argument grew louder. Species accused each other of sabotage. Ancient rivalries surfaced. Chancellor Vexith tried to maintain order, but his voice was drowned out by hundreds of others. Then the celestial gate did something it had never done before. It pulsed with light so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. The light didn't stop at the ceremony hall. It spread outward, passing through walls like they weren't there. Jiho jumped to his feet as light flooded his cell. It didn't hurt, but it felt strange, like being touched by warm water that wasn't wet. The light surrounded him, and for a moment he felt like something was looking at him, really looking at him, seeing everything he was. Then the light focused on him. It became a column of pure white brilliance that made his cell brighter than day. Jiho couldn't move, couldn't think. He just stood there, confused and a little scared. In the ceremony hall, every screen and display suddenly showed the same image. A human male in a dirty flight suit, standing in a holding cell with his mouth hanging open in shock. Under the image, words appeared in every language. "The Crownless King is found." The hall fell completely silent. Then chaos erupted. "A human? Prince Dowan shouted. This is an insult. Impossible, someone else cried. Humans are barely civilized. Lady Hiren felt her heart sink. This was a disaster for humanity. A joke at best, a reason for war at worst. She wanted to disappear. Chancellor Vexith stared at the image, his mind racing. In 3,000 years of records, the gate had never scanned someone who wasn't a prepared candidate. Never scanned someone in a holding cell. Never chosen someone who looked so utterly confused. Taman floated closer to the gate, reading the symbols that danced across its surface. Remarkable, he whispered. The gate is showing us the prophecy's true words. The crownless king, one who knows not rule, seeks not power. That proves nothing. Prince Dowan's light was now pure red with rage. Guards were already running to Jiho's cell. Commander Soman followed, her hand still on her weapon, but her expression was troubled. She had sworn to protect the gate's choice no matter what. But a human? A random cargo pilot? Jiho heard footsteps running toward his cell. A lot of footsteps. The door burst open and 6 guards rushed in. They grabbed his arms, not roughly but firmly. Hey, what's going on? Jiho asked. Look, I told you I'll pay the trespassing fine. I just need to contact my bank. You are to come with us, one guard said. The Celestial Gate has chosen you. Chosen me for what? The guard didn't answer. They pulled him out of the cell and down the corridor. Jiho's confusion turned to concern. This was getting weird, even by galactic standards. They brought him to the ceremony hall through a side entrance. The moment Jiho stepped into the light, thousands of eyes turned toward him. Beings of every shape and size stared at him with expressions he couldn't read. Some looked angry. Some looked shocked. Some looked like they wanted to laugh. Chancellor Vexith approached him. You are the one called Jiho? Yes, what's this about? The Celestial Gate has declared you Emperor of the Galactic Imperium. Jiho blinked. Then he laughed. Okay, who put you up to this? Is this some kind of prank show? Am I being recorded? Nobody else was laughing. Jiho's smile faded. He looked at the massive gate, still glowing with light focused on him. He looked at the thousands of beings watching him. He looked at Lady Hiren, who had her face in her hands. You're serious, Jiho said slowly. The gate does not make errors, Taman said, floating closer. It has chosen you to rule the galaxy. Jiho felt his knees go weak. I'm a cargo pilot. I deliver supplies to mining colonies. There's been a mistake. The Celestial Gate pulsed brighter as if responding to his words. The symbols on its surface rearranged themselves and a voice spoke. It was the first time the gate had spoken in 3,000 years. The voice sounded like music, like stone grinding, like wind through leaves all at once. No mistake, the gate said. The crownless king has been found. Jiho looked at all those faces watching him. Important faces. Powerful faces. Faces that belonged to beings who controlled planets and commanded fleets. And they were all waiting for him to say something. I'm going to need a minute, Jiho said quietly. Jiho stood before the Council of Species in the same oil-stained flight suit he had been wearing for 3 days. Someone had offered him formal robes, but in the chaos, no one had actually given him time to change. He felt like he was in a dream. A very strange, very uncomfortable dream. Chancellor Vexith tried to maintain order, but voices kept rising from the assembled crowd. Arguments broke out in a dozen languages. Some delegates had already walked out. Others were making threatening gestures at Jiho, who honestly couldn't blame them. This is madness. Prince Dowan's light flickered angry red. The gate must be malfunctioning. I demand we reset it immediately. Lady Hiren stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over despite her shock. Perhaps we should consider that there has been a technical error. Humans are not part of the ancient empire's lineage. Surely there is no error, Taman interrupted. The old keeper of records floated to the center of the hall, his mechanical body whirring softly. I have studied the prophecies for 600 years. The signs are all here. What signs? Someone shouted from the crowd. Tamin projected text onto the air, symbols from the ancient language. The crownless king. One who knows not rule, seeks not power, bears no crown of birth or conquest. One who sees the throne as burden, not blessing. He turned to look at Jiho. Tell me, human, did you come here seeking to be emperor? What? No, Jiho said. I came here because my ship crashed. I was looking for a repair shop. Did you prepare for this ceremony? Study ancient texts? Make political alliances? I didn't even know this ceremony existed until an hour ago. Taman nodded slowly. Exactly as the prophecy states. One who knows not rule. Prince Dowan moved forward, his light blazing. This proves nothing. The prophecy could apply to any fool pulled from the street. We need someone with training, with understanding of galactic politics, with desire for power, Taman asked quietly. That is precisely what the prophecy warns against. The last emperor fell because he loved power too much, even though he used it wisely. The galaxy does not need another ruler who wants the throne. A figure stepped forward from the psionic delegation. Councillor Minho was tall and thin, with eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. Let me verify this, he said. I will read the human's mind. We will see if his intentions are pure. Jiho took a step back. Wait, you can read minds? That seems like a privacy violation. Be silent, Minho said. Before Jiho could protest further, the psionic reached out with his mind. Jiho felt a strange pressure in his head, like someone was rummaging through his memories. It was uncomfortable but didn't hurt. Then suddenly Minho pulled back, his eyes wide with shock. What did you see? Chancellor Vexith demanded. Minho turned to face the council. I have never encountered a mind like this. There is no deception in him, no hidden agenda. He genuinely believes he is unfit to rule. The psionic paused, struggling to find words. But more than that, he has something I have only read about in ancient texts, an ability to see connections between all things, not through psionics or technology, but through understanding, empathy. Empathy? Prince Dowan scoffed. That is a weakness, not a strength. The last emperor possessed this quality, Minho said quietly. It is mentioned in every record of his rule. He could understand the needs of all species because he could feel what they felt. It made him a great leader, until the weight of caring for trillions drove him to dissolve himself into energy. The hall fell silent. This was sacred history, not to be spoken of lightly. Commander Soman had been standing guard by the gate, but now she spoke up. The prophecy must be fulfilled. The gate has chosen, that is the law. Law can be changed, Prince Dowan said. His light was now bright white, dangerous. Several of his guards moved closer to him. I propose we deactivate the gate before this farce continues. That would be unwise, Soman said. Her hand moved to her weapon. Are you threatening me? Prince Dowan's guards raised their weapons. Jiho watched the situation spiraling out of control. People were going to get hurt because of him, because of a stupid ancient machine that thought he should be emperor. He had never asked for this. He didn't want power. He just wanted to deliver his cargo and pay his bills and maybe have enough left over for a decent meal occasionally. Stop, Jiho said. Nobody heard him. The arguments were getting louder. Some delegates were calling for their ships, threatening to leave the Imperium forever. Others were forming groups, possibly planning violence. Stop, Jiho shouted. His voice wasn't impressive compared to beings who could shake mountains with their words, but something in his tone made people pause. Maybe it was the desperation in it. Maybe it was because he looked so completely out of place. Everyone turned to look at him. Jiho took a deep breath. Look, I don't know what this gate thinks it sees in me. I'm nobody special. I barely graduated flight school. I've never led anything more important than a convoy through an asteroid field. He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous gesture. But I can see that you're all about to tear this place apart over me, and that's stupid. Stupid? Prince Dowan's light flickered with insult. Yes, stupid, Jiho said, too tired and confused to be diplomatic. You've got a galaxy that's falling apart. I heard the guards talking while I was in the cell. Species at war, trade routes collapsing, entire colonies starving because nobody can agree on supply chains. And you're all so focused on who gets to sit on a fancy chair that you're ignoring the actual problems. Lady Hiron made a small noise of distress. Jiho was committing diplomatic suicide. But he kept talking. I don't want to be emperor. I'll be terrible at it. But if me saying yes stops you all from fighting each other, then fine, I'll try. But I'm going to need help. A lot of help. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. The celestial gate responded to his words. Light poured from it, brighter than ever before. The symbols on its surface rearranged themselves into patterns that Taman gasped at. Incredible, the old keeper whispered. The gate is showing the full prophecy now. It has been waiting for someone who would refuse power but accept responsibility. Prince Dowan stared at the gate, then at Jiho. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Dowan did something unexpected. He laughed. Not a mocking laugh, but one of genuine surprise. A human who admits he is unqualified. I have never heard a candidate do that before. Every other being who approached that gate today was absolutely certain they deserved to rule. Including you, Commander Soman noted. Prince Dowan's light flickered, almost embarrassed. Including me, he admitted. He looked at Jiho again. Very well. I will not support you, human. But I will not oppose the gate's choice. For now. It wasn't much, but it was enough to break the tension. Other delegates began nodding, murmuring to each other. Not all of them agreed, but the immediate threat of violence had passed. Chancellor Vexith stepped forward. Then it is decided. Jiho of Earth will undergo the trials of understanding. If he proves himself worthy over the next 3 months, he will be crowned emperor. If he fails, the gate will choose another. Jiho blinked. Wait, there are trials? Nobody mentioned trials. There are always trials, Taman said, sounding almost amused. But do not worry. They are not tests of strength or intelligence. They are tests of character. That's not reassuring, Jiho muttered. Lady Hieron approached him as the crowd began to disperse. You should have remained silent, she said quietly. Let the diplomats handle it. Sorry, Jiho said. I'm not good at politics. That is painfully obvious. She paused, studying his face. But perhaps that is not entirely a bad thing. Come, I will show you to your quarters, and for the love of all that's sacred, you need to change clothes. As they walked through the corridors of the Citadel, Jiho noticed how people stared at him, some with curiosity, some with contempt, some with hope. He didn't feel ready for any of this. He wasn't a hero or a leader. He was just someone who delivered supplies to mining colonies because it was honest work that paid enough to keep his ship running. His new quarters were bigger than his entire ship. Crystal windows looked out over the city below. The bed was enormous. Everything was decorated with precious metals and stones. Jiho felt uncomfortable just standing in it. This is too much, he said. This is the Emperor's chamber, Lady Hieron replied. You will need to get used to it. Can I get a smaller room? This feels wasteful. Hieron stared at him. You are the strangest person I have ever met. I get that a lot, Jiho said. He walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere down there, people were going about their lives, working, eating, sleeping. Normal people like he used to be. 3 days ago, I was worried about making rent on my docking bay. Now I'm supposed to rule a galaxy. How does this even happen? The gate chose you, Hieron said. You must have something it recognized. Or it's broken, Jiho suggested. Perhaps. Hieron moved to leave, then paused at the door. For what it is worth, you were right in there. The galaxy is falling apart. We need someone who cares more about fixing problems than holding power. I just hope you survive long enough to try. After she left, Jiho stood alone in the enormous room. Through the window he could see the celestial gate in the distance, still glowing softly. It had chosen him. He still didn't understand why, but it had. 3 weeks had passed since the ceremony. Jiho had moved out of the Grand Emperor's quarters and into what used to be a storage room. It was smaller, simpler, and made him feel less like a fraud. The council had complained, but he ignored them. If he was going to do this job, he was going to do it his way. His first official meeting was with advisor Yuna, a representative from the Mechanoid Collective. She was different from the organic beings Jiho had met. Her body was a combination of metal and crystal, constantly shifting and rearranging itself as she processed information. You need to understand galactic history, Yuna said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. The Empire fell 3,000 years ago because the Emperor couldn't handle the pressure and basically committed suicide, Jiho interrupted. I read the file you sent me. Yuna's optical sensors flickered. You read all 3,000 pages? I didn't sleep much last night. Jiho rubbed his eyes. Look, I know I'm behind on everything, but I learn fast when I need to. That is acceptable, Yuna said. Something in her tone might have been approval. Then let us discuss current issues. The Mechanoid Collective and the Psionic Union have been in a border dispute for 300 years. Over what? A neutral zone. Both sides claim it was promised to them after the Empire fell. Jiho leaned back in his chair. And nobody thought to just talk to each other about it? We have had 400 diplomatic meetings. None were successful. Why not? Yuna's form shifted, which Jiho had learned meant she was thinking. We do not understand each other. The psionics communicate through thoughts and feelings. The mechanoids communicate through logic and data. When we try to talk, nothing translates correctly. Jiho thought about that, so it's not really about the territory. It's about communication. I had not considered it that way. Before Jiho could respond, the door opened. A young Draconite entered, his scales deep blue instead of the silver of Chancellor Vexith. This was Daehyun, assigned to be Jiho's cultural liaison. From the expression on his face, he was not happy about it. I am here to teach you proper diplomatic protocol, Daehyun said stiffly. Great. What should I know? When meeting a Luminar noble, you must dim the lights in the room as a sign of respect. When greeting a Draconite elder, you must bow 3 times. Why? Jiho asked. Daehyun blinked. Why what? Why do I need to do all that? What's the purpose? It is tradition. It shows respect. But does it actually show respect, or does it just show that I memorized rules? Jiho leaned forward. If I meet someone and I genuinely listen to them, treat them as an equal, try to understand their problems, isn't that more respectful than bowing the right number of times? Daehyun's mouth opened, then closed. That is not how diplomacy works. Maybe that's the problem, Jiho said. Over the next few days, Jiho did something that shocked everyone. He went to the lower citadel, the working-class areas where servants, maintenance crews, and dock workers lived. No emperor candidate had ever visited there before. Security tried to stop him, but Commander Soman overruled them. If he wants to walk into danger, that is his choice, she said. I will protect him. The lower citadel was different from the grand halls above. The walls were plain metal instead of crystal. The lights flickered sometimes, but there were families here, children playing, people laughing over meals. It felt more real to Jiho than anything in the upper levels. He stopped at a small food stall where a 4-armed alien was cooking something that smelled amazing. Can I try that? Jiho asked. The cook stared at him. You are the human. The one the gate chose. Yeah, I'm Jiho. What's your name? Bokja. The cook seemed uncertain. You want to eat my food? It smells great. Why wouldn't I? Bokja served him a bowl of something like stew. Jiho sat on a simple bench and ate it. It was delicious, spicy, and rich. Other workers gathered around watching this strange sight of an emperor candidate eating street food. Is it true you're just a cargo pilot? Someone asked. Was a cargo pilot, Jiho said. Now I'm not sure what I am yet. Are you going to change things? An older woman asked. The upper levels ignore us. We work to keep this citadel running, but they treat us like we're invisible. Jiho looked around at all the faces watching him. Hope and doubt mixed in their expressions. I can't promise I'll fix everything, he said honestly. I'm new at this and I'm probably going to make mistakes. But I can promise I'll listen. And I'll try. The next day, Jiho announced he would hold open forums. Any citizen could come and speak to him directly, without going through layers of bureaucracy. The council tried to stop him, saying it was inefficient and beneath the emperor's dignity. I don't care about dignity, Jiho told them. People are suffering and I want to hear about it directly, not through reports written by someone 3 levels removed from the problem. The first person to speak at the forum was a mother from a mining colony. Her daughter was sick and needed medicine, but the supply chains were so tangled up in red tape that it would take 6 months to arrive. By then it would be too late. Jiho listened to her story. Then he turned to the logistics coordinator who was present. Why does it take 6 months? There are procedures, forms, approvals needed from... Cut through it, Jiho said. Send the medicine now. Bill it as an emergency imperial order. But that would set a precedent. Good, let it set a precedent that when people are dying, we help them fast instead of drowning them in paperwork. The medicine was sent within hours. The mother cried and thanked Jiho. He felt uncomfortable with her gratitude. This should have been normal, not exceptional. But the case made him dig deeper. Why was the supply chain so broken? He discovered layers of corruption. Officials taking bribes to prioritize certain shipments over others. Jiho didn't just fix this one case. He started dismantling the entire corrupt system, which made him a lot of powerful enemies very quickly. You are making mistakes, Lady Hiren warned him after a particularly difficult council meeting. You cannot just tear down systems without understanding why they exist. I understand why they exist, Jiho said tiredly. They exist because people in power want to stay in power and they use complexity to hide their corruption. It is not that simple, isn't it? Jiho looked at her. Help me understand. Why should it take 6 months to send medicine to a dying child? Hiren had no answer. Meanwhile, Prince Dawen's faction was growing. Many noble families saw Jiho as a threat to their positions. They spread rumors that he was incompetent, that he was going to destroy the Imperium's traditions. Some called for his removal. Admiral Kyungsoo, the military commander, came to speak with Jiho. He was a veteran warrior with scars across his face and a reputation for being uncompromising. "The fleet is divided," Kyungsoo said bluntly. "Half support you, half think you are weak and will lead us to ruin. What do you think?" Jiho asked. Kyungsoo studied him for a long moment. "I think you are different. Whether different is good or bad, I do not know yet, but I will give you a chance to prove yourself." That chance came sooner than anyone expected. The mechanoid psionic dispute that Yuna had mentioned was about to explode into war. Both sides were moving fleets into position. One wrong move and millions would die. The council expected Jiho to choose a side or try traditional diplomacy. Instead, he did something no one anticipated. He announced he would spend 1 month living with the mechanoids and then 1 month living with the psionics. "You cannot do that," Chancellor Vexith protested. "It is beneath the Emperor's station to—" "I'm not Emperor yet," Jiho interrupted. "I'm still in trials, remember? And how can I make a fair decision if I don't understand both sides?" So Jiho went to live on a mechanoid station. He worked alongside them, learned their language of pure logic and mathematics. He discovered they weren't cold or emotionless as he had assumed. They felt things differently, processed experience through data and pattern recognition. Their way of understanding the universe was beautiful in its precision. Then he went to the psionic worlds. He learned to open his mind to their way of communication, feeling thoughts as colors and emotions as songs. It was overwhelming at first, but gradually he began to understand their perspective. They weren't scattered or illogical. They processed reality through connection and empathy, seeing the threads that bound all consciousness together. Daehyun traveled with him through both experiences. The young Draconite was supposed to keep Jiho safe and maintain protocol, but instead he found himself learning alongside the human. One night on the psionic homeworld, Daehyun asked, "Why do you do this?" "No previous candidate worked this hard." "Because they already thought they knew everything," Jiho said. "I know I don't, so I have to learn." When Jiho returned to the Citadel, he called both the mechanoid and psionic leaders to meet with him. Instead of proposing a solution, he did something simpler. He had them talk to each other, but with him as a translator. When the mechanoids say they value logical consistency, Jiho explained to the psionics, they mean they need to trust that agreements will be honored predictably. It is their version of emotional security. When the psionics talk about feeling the rightness of a decision, he told the mechanoids, they are processing multiple probability streams simultaneously through intuition. It is their version of running predictive algorithms. 6 months had passed since the Celestial Gate chose Jiho. He stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars beyond the crystal windows. He looked thinner now, older somehow. Sleep was difficult. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw faces of people depending on him. Problems he couldn't solve, decisions that had no right answer. The door opened behind him. He didn't turn around, but he recognized the footsteps. Lady Hyerin had a particular way of walking, efficient and precise. "You should be resting," she said, coming to stand beside him. "Can't sleep." Jiho's voice was rough with exhaustion. "Every time I try, I think about the colony supply routes I still haven't fixed, or the trade disputes waiting for review, or the 100 other things that need attention. You cannot solve everything yourself." "I know." He rubbed his face with both hands. "But people are counting on me. What if I'm not enough? What if they were right and the gate made a mistake?" Hyerin looked at him carefully. Over the months, she had changed her opinion of this strange human. The gate does not make mistakes, but you are allowed to be uncertain. That's not very reassuring. It was not meant to be. Before Jiho could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the Citadel. Commander Soman's voice came over the communication system. "Emperor Candidate Jiho, report to the command center immediately." The command center was chaos when they arrived. Screens showed burning ships and shattered stations. Admiral Kyungsoo stood at the center, his expression grim. "The Void Syndicate has attacked," he said without preamble. 3 outer colonies. They destroyed our relief ships and killed everyone at the distribution centers. Jiho felt his stomach drop. "How many?" 40,000 dead. Maybe more. We are still getting reports." Kyungsoo pulled up images of the destruction, bodies floating in space. Children's toys drifting among debris. They left a message. This is the price of the Crownless King's weakness. The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at Jiho. This was his fault. People had died because of him, because of his policies of peace and understanding. We must respond with force, Kyungsu said. The fleet is ready. Give the order, and we will hunt down every syndicate ship in the galaxy. How many will die if we do that? Jiho asked quietly. Does it matter? They are pirates and murderers. It matters to me. Jiho looked at the images of destruction again. His hands were shaking. But you're right. We have to respond. I just need to think about how. There is no time for thinking. Prince Doan had arrived, his light blazing angry red. They have attacked the Imperium. They have killed innocents. This is war. War will kill more innocents, Jiho said, but his voice lacked conviction. He felt lost, drowning in the weight of the decision. The debate raged for hours. Some council members wanted total war. Others wanted to try negotiation. Jiho sat silent, listening to them argue. 40,000 people were dead because he had shown mercy to the syndicate before, had tried to offer them a chance at redemption. Their blood was on his hands. It was Daehyun who finally said what Jiho needed to hear. The young Draconite had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now he spoke up. My family was killed by syndicate raiders 10 years ago. They destroyed our colony and took everything we had. Everyone turned to look at him. Daehyun's scales had darkened with remembered pain. I wanted revenge for a long time, Daehyun continued. I joined the military to hunt them down. But revenge never brought my family back. It just made me angrier. He looked at Jiho. You cannot save everyone. The old emperor tried. He wanted to protect every life in the galaxy. And the impossible burden of that perfection drove him mad. Sometimes a ruler must accept that protection requires strength. Jiho met his eyes. You're saying I should authorize military action. I am saying you need to make a decision. Not the perfect decision, because that does not exist. Just a decision. Whatever you choose, some people will die. That is the burden of leadership. Jiho closed his eyes. Daehyun was right. He had been frozen by the fear of making the wrong choice, but making no choice was worse. People were in danger right now while he hesitated. Okay, Jiho said, opening his eyes. Admiral Kyungsu, prepare a military operation. But I want strict rules. Minimize casualties, offer surrender when possible. Target leadership, not foot soldiers. The syndicate's leaders ordered these attacks. They need to answer for that. But the people forced into piracy by desperation deserve a chance. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but it was better than doing nothing. The operation launched within hours. Jiho insisted on being in the command center, watching every moment. He needed to see the consequences of his decision. When syndicate ships were destroyed, he saw the life signs blink out on screens. When Imperium soldiers died, he knew their names because he had read the roster beforehand. The operation was successful. Syndicate bases were destroyed, their leadership captured or killed. The attacks stopped. But the cost made Jiho sick. 300 Imperium soldiers dead. Unknown numbers of syndicate members killed. And those numbers didn't include the people who had already died in the attacks. After the operation ended, Jiho went to the medical bay. He walked among the wounded soldiers, speaking to each one. He apologized for not protecting them better. Some accepted his apology. Some didn't. He stayed until he had spoken to everyone. Commander Soman found him there at midnight, sitting beside the bed of a young pilot who had lost both legs. You should rest, she said. I ordered these people into danger, Jiho said. The least I can do is be here with them. That is not how most leaders operate. I'm not most leaders. He looked up at her. I'm just someone trying not to break under the weight of this. Soman nodded slowly. The old emperor used to visit wounded soldiers too, in the early years of his reign. But as the empire grew, he stopped. He said it hurt too much to see the cost of his decisions up close. Maybe that's why he failed, Jiho said. Maybe when you stop seeing the cost, you stop caring about making better choices. The next day brought unexpected news. One of the captured syndicate leaders wanted to speak with Jiho directly. Her name was Jiwon, and she had a reputation for being brilliant and ruthless. Execute her, Prince Dowan advised. She has killed thousands. Let me talk to her first, Jiho said. They brought Jiwon to a secure room. She was younger than Jiho expected, maybe 30 standard years old, Her species had features similar to humans, but her skin had a slight blue tint. You wanted to speak to me? Jiho asked. Ji-won studied him with cold eyes. I wanted to see the Crownless king up close. The fool who thinks kindness can hold a galaxy together. I'm not a fool. I'm just someone who thinks there might be a better way than endless violence. There is no better way. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. That is the law of the universe. Is that why you became a pirate? Because you're strong? Something flickered in Ji-won's expression. I became what I needed to be to survive. When the Empire fell, my family's world was destroyed in the wars that followed. Nobody came to help us. The nobles who promised protection fled to their comfortable core worlds and left us to die. I was 8 years old when I learned that their promises meant nothing. Jiho sat down across from her. So you're angry. I get that. The system failed you. But killing innocent people won't fix that. Those innocent people were living comfortable lives while children starved in the outer colonies. They were part of the system that abandoned us. You're right, Jiho said quietly. Ji-won blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. What? You're right. The system is broken. It favors the core worlds and ignores the outer colonies. People suffer while others prosper, and that's not fair. You had every reason to be angry. He leaned forward. But you're also wrong. Killing people who were just trying to distribute relief supplies doesn't hurt the system. It hurts other victims of that same system. For a long moment, Ji-won said nothing. Then she asked, what happens to me now? That depends. You've killed people. That has to have consequences. But many in your syndicate were forced into piracy by desperation, not choice. They deserve a second chance. Jiho met her eyes. You're smart, you're a good leader, and you understand what the outer colonies need because you lived it. I could execute you. Or you could work for me. Help rebuild the colonies you've raided. Use your skills to make things better instead of worse. Why would you trust me? I don't, not yet. But I believe people can change when given the opportunity. Ji-won laughed, but it sounded bitter. You really are either the greatest fool in galactic history, or you see something the rest of us have forgotten. Maybe both, Jiho said. 3 days later, Jiho made a public announcement. Most captured syndicate members would be offered a choice: face trial and punishment for their crimes, or join the reconstruction effort for the colonies they had damaged. Those who chose reconstruction would be monitored, but they would have a path to redemption. The council was furious. Prince Dowan called it weakness. But something unexpected happened. 70% of the captured syndicate members chose reconstruction. They were tired of fighting, tired of running. They wanted something better. Ji-won chose reconstruction too. She was assigned to lead efforts in the outer colonies, with Admiral Kyung-soo personally overseeing her work. Late that night, Jiho sat alone in his room again. Daehyun brought him food, as had become routine. 1 year had passed since the Celestial Gate chose Jiho. The Eternal Citadel looked different now. The barriers between upper and lower levels had been removed. Workers walked the same halls as diplomats. Children played in gardens that used to be reserved for nobles. Change had come slowly, with resistance at every step, but it had come. Jiho stood before the Council of Species, looking tired but determined. The Outer Rim Coalition has requested to join the Imperium, he announced. They've been independent for 3,000 years, but they want to be part of what we're building. Murmurs filled the hall. The Outer Rim species were powerful and ancient, often more advanced than the core worlds. Their decision to join meant something. Why now? Chancellor Vexith asked. They said. Jiho paused, feeling emotional. They said they watched how we handled the syndicate crisis. They saw that we offered mercy alongside justice. And one of their leaders told me, your emperor cried for our dead when the attacks happened, and we saw it was real. Prince Dowan, who now sat as an advisor rather than an opponent, nodded slowly. The Outer Rim does not trust easily. This is significant. It is, agreed Lady Hyron. She had changed over the year too, becoming one of Jiho's most trusted counselors, but it also means new responsibilities. The Outer Rim has its own conflicts, its own problems. I know, Jiho said, which is why I'm not going to solve them. We're going to help them solve their own problems. Before the discussion could continue, the doors burst open. An elderly figure floated in. Her body a mixture of biological and technological parts. High Matriarch Suman, leader of the Outer Rim Coalition, had arrived personally. I came to deliver our request in person, Suman said. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. But also to issue a test. If you can solve one problem that has plagued the Outer Rim for 10,000 years, we will join your Imperium fully. If you cannot, we will remain independent. What problem? Jiho asked. Suman gestured and a holographic display appeared. It showed two species locked in eternal conflict. The Verdani and the Pyros. They have been at war for millennia. The Verdani are plant-based, requiring stable ecosystems. The Pyros are energy beings who transform worlds through heat. Their very existence is incompatible. Jiho studied the display, his mind already working on the problem. This wasn't a political issue or a misunderstanding. This was a fundamental incompatibility. Have they tried living on separate worlds? Of course. But both species expand naturally. They need more space as their populations grow. Every time they encounter each other, war breaks out. Give me 3 days, Jiho said. Suman's ancient eyes studied him. 3 days to solve what 10,000 years could not? 3 days to try. Jiho spent those 3 days barely sleeping. He worked with advisor Yuna, the mechanoid who had become his closest ally for technical problems. Together they designed something new, shared space stations that could house both species. The Verdani need specific environmental conditions, Jiho explained to the design team. Temperature, humidity, atmosphere. The Pyros need high energy fields and heat. What if we built stations with separated environmental zones but shared common areas? The common areas would need to be neutral, Yuna calculated. Neither species could maintain their preferred conditions there. Exactly. Both would be slightly uncomfortable in common areas, which means neither has an advantage. They'd be equals. It is an elegant solution, Yuna admitted, but will they accept it? I don't know, but it's better than war. On the third day, Jiho presented his solution to representatives of both species. He expected resistance, arguments, maybe even insults. Instead, something strange happened. Both sides fell silent, studying the design. Finally, a Verdani elder spoke. You are asking us to compromise, to accept discomfort for peace. I'm asking you to try something new, Jiho said. This war has cost both your species millions of lives. What if there was another way? A Pyros leader, a being of pure flame contained in an energy field, pulsed thoughtfully. The human sees what we have not. We have been so focused on defeating each other that we never considered coexistence might be possible. It wasn't immediate acceptance. There were weeks of negotiations, modifications to the design, arguments over details, but eventually, both species agreed to try the shared stations. Construction began on the first prototype. High Matriarch Suman watched the groundbreaking ceremony with something that might have been a smile. You did not solve the problem perfectly, she told Jiho, but you offered a path forward. That is all any leader can do. The Outer Rim officially joined the Imperium. It was cause for celebration, but Jiho felt uneasy. Everything was moving so fast. The responsibility kept growing. That night, something extraordinary happened. The celestial gate activated without warning. A figure appeared within its arch made of pure light and energy. Jiho recognized it somehow, though they had never met. You are the Echo, Jiho said. The fragment of the first Emperor. I am, the Echo confirmed. Its voice sounded like memory-given sound. I have waited 3,000 years to speak with my successor. I'm not your successor. I'm just someone who got chosen by accident. There are no accidents with the gate. The Echo moved closer. I need to tell you a truth. The first Emperor, the one I was, did not choose to dissolve into energy. He was consumed by the weight of trying to be perfect for everyone. He wanted to make every decision right, to save every life, to solve every problem. That impossible burden destroyed him. Jiho felt a chill. That's what I've been feeling. Like I'm drowning in responsibility. Yes. Which is why I must offer you a choice. The Echo gestured and symbols appeared around them. The gate can grant you full imperial power. You would live for centuries, maybe millennia. You would have abilities beyond normal humans. Strength, speed, mental processing far beyond organic limits. You could be the eternal emperor the galaxy needs, or, Jiho asked, or you can refuse the power. Remain human, remain mortal, remain limited, but also remain free of the burden that destroyed me. For a long moment, Jiho didn't speak. The offer was tempting. With that power, he could do so much more. Fix problems faster. Live long enough to see his changes take root. Protect people more effectively. But he thought about everything he had learned this past year. About how the old emperor had failed not because he wasn't powerful enough, but because he tried to do everything alone, about how the best solutions came from working with others, not dictating to them. I choose to remain human, Jiho said. The echo seemed to pulse with approval. Why? Because the galaxy doesn't need an eternal emperor. It needs a reminder that leadership is temporary. That power should be service, not ownership. If I take that power, I'll start believing I'm the only one who can lead, and that's how empires fall. You understand? The echo began to fade. The gate chose well. You see what I could not. Leadership is not about being perfect. It is about helping others find their own strength. After the echo disappeared, Jiho called a meeting of all the council members. When everyone had arrived, he made an announcement that shocked them all. I'm establishing a new system of governance. From now on, there will be no emperor with unlimited power. Instead, the Council of Species will govern collectively, with a rotating chair position. Each species gets a turn leading. This is unprecedented, Chancellor Vexith protested. So was choosing a cargo pilot as emperor, Jiho pointed out. The old system failed because it concentrated too much power in one person. We need something better. Who will be the first chair? Lady Hyron asked. Daehyun. Jiho looked at the young Draconite, who stared back in shock. He's learned everything I've learned this year. He understands that leadership is service, and when his term ends, someone else will take over. But you were chosen by the gate, Prince Dowan said. His light flickered with confusion, not anger. You are the Crownless King. Exactly, Crownless. I was never meant to hold power forever. I was meant to show that power can be shared. Jiho smiled tiredly. I'll serve out my term, help set up the new system, and then I'm done. Someone younger and smarter can take over. Daehyun finally found his voice. I am not ready for this. Neither was I, Jiho said. But you'll learn. And you'll have help. That's the point of the new system. Nobody leads alone. Over the next months, the transition happened. Jiho worked with the council to establish checks and balances, systems to prevent any single leader from becoming too powerful. It was messy and complicated, with arguments and setbacks. But slowly, it took shape. 5 years after he was chosen by the gate, Jiho officially stepped down. He attended the ceremony where Daehyun was sworn in as the first rotating chair of the council. There was no crown, no throne, just a simple oath to serve the people. After the ceremony, Jiho returned to his ship. It had been repaired and updated, ready for flight. He loaded supplies for outer colony deliveries. Some things had changed, but his purpose hadn't. He was still someone who helped people by getting them what they needed. Commander Somin came to see him off. Will you come back? Maybe, if you need me. But I think you'll be fine without me. The galaxy will remember you, Somin said. The emperor who gave up power. I was never really emperor, Jiho said, climbing into his ship. Just someone who tried to help for a while.